Right now, someone with less talent, less skill, and less strength than you is winning. Why? Because they look more certain. They talk like they deserve it. They walk like they've already earned it, and people believe them. Meanwhile, you hesitate. You second guess. You wait for the perfect timing, the perfect words, the perfect feeling. And while you wait, someone else takes what could have been yours. Confidence isn't just a personality trait. It's a weapon. And if you're not holding it, someone else is using it against you. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. The bold rise even if they're not ready. The hesitant stay behind even if they're brilliant. Because the world doesn't give power to the best. It gives it to the most certain. This video isn't for motivation. It's not about feeling good. It's about control. Real control. The kind that reshapes your voice, your posture, your presence. From this moment on, hesitation is no longer welcome. Weakness is no longer excused. It will be erased. You weren't born soft. You were made soft. Through rewards, rules, routines, you were trained to obey, conditioned to please, taught to ask, "Is this okay?" What's inside you right now isn't a man. It's a servant, a loyal, obedient version of yourself, programmed to submit, programmed to flinch when judged, to wait for permission. That voice in your head that says, "Hold back, wait, maybe later," that's not your voice. That's the inner servant talking. And if you don't silence him now, he will run your life. Machiavelli didn't whisper. He didn't wait for approval. He didn't explain himself. He didn't ask for power. He took it. Because he knew the truth. Those who ask for power don't deserve it. Your transformation begins with inversion. Flip the instinct. Every time you want to shrink, you expand. Every time you feel the urge to explain, you hold your ground. Every time you want to say sorry, you stare. Confidence at this level doesn't come from being ready. It comes from doing what the servant version of you never would. You walk with purpose. You take up space. You stop nodding to be polite. You stop softening your voice to be accepted. You speak like your words carry weight. Not suggestions, decisions. Confidence isn't a mindset. It's an identity. And that identity is built through defiance. Not defiance against others, but defiance against your old self. So here's your first rule. If it makes you small, kill it. A thought, a habit, a relationship, kill it. If it makes you hesitate, confront it. If it weakens you, deny it. If it tries to be liked, mock it. The world will tell you to be polite, to be kind, to be nice. But here's the Machiavellian truth. Nice men are used. They're discarded, replaced. They're not respected. They're forgettable. Powerful men aren't nice. They're precise, calculated, controlled. And it starts with killing that little voice inside you that still wants to be accepted. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You need one thing, the willingness to become feared, not by others, but by your former self. Because when you finally kill the servant, the ruler inside you rises. Powerful men don't enter a room with noise. They enter with presence. Not with words, but with silence, stillness, focus. They don't need to be known. They don't need to be liked. They need the room to shift the second they step in. That's the energy of someone who owns the space. Not because he was told he does, but because he acts like he always has. Machiavelli knew this in the royal courts. The ones who controlled the power weren't always the kings. Sometimes it was the quiet man in the corner, the one who barely spoke. But when he did, the entire court leaned in. Silence is control. You think dominance comes from talking? It doesn't. That makes you predictable. The quiet man is the threat, because no one knows what he's thinking. And that's terrifying. So when you walk into a room, you don't search for approval. You don't try to earn your place. You scan, you calculate. You let others rush to be seen while you stay still and absorb. Your posture speaks before your mouth ever does. You move slow, not because you're unsure, but because you don't need to hurry. Predators don't sprint unless they're ready to strike. Until then, they wait. Calm, coiled, controlled. Most people don't even realize how fast they move, how quickly they speak, how much they try to impress. Because they're still seeking approval, still performing, still trapped under someone else's judgment. But when you walk in like you already own it, something changes. You don't speak to get attention. You speak to make decisions. Your words carry finality. Every sentence is a closing argument. People start to listen differently. They stop interrupting. They stop challenging. They start adjusting to you. And when others talk, you wait. You let them go first. You let them reveal what they're chasing, what they're afraid of. Because the first one to speak usually gives away the most. And now, you know where to press. You don't chase energy. You become gravity. Confidence at this level isn't about being liked. It's about making people second-guess their own position just by standing next to you. You carry yourself like you've already won. Not cocky, certain. Like someone who doesn't compete because he's already chosen himself. If they respect you, great. If they don't, even better. Because indifference to approval is the highest form of power. And if the room didn't belong to you when you walked in, by the time you leave, they'll remember it like it did. Not because you forced them, but because you didn't have to. Words aren't just sounds, they're weapons, and most men use them like they're begging for permission to exist. You know the signs. That soft, rising tone, the nervous chuckle, the endless, I think, maybe, I'm not sure. That's not communication, that's surrender. Machiavelli knew the truth. Power doesn't come from what you say, but how you say it. When you speak like you cannot be denied, people don't analyze your meaning. They submit to your certainty. Because here's the secret. People aren't logical. They're emotional. They don't follow truth. They follow conviction. If you sound sure, people assume you're right. If you hesitate, they assume you're wrong, even if your idea is better. So what does a Machiavellian voice sound like? It's slow. It's calm. It's final. You speak like every sentence is a decree, not a suggestion. Like your words are not open for negotiation. You don't rush. You don't ramble. You deliver. And then you stop. Even if you're standing in front of people smarter than you, more experienced than you. If you speak like a decision, they'll defer. Because tone matters more than logic. Authority is felt before it's understood. Rule number 1, sound like the end, not the beginning. And here's what most people never figure out. Respect doesn't come from how much you speak. It comes from how well you command silence. The more you say, the more people have to work with, to analyze, to challenge, to decode. Speak less, mean more. When you do speak, strip away the softness. No filler, no explanations, no apologies. Eliminate weak phrases like, I'm just saying, I could be wrong, but this might not make sense, but that's fear talking. That's the inner servant gasping for air. Burn it, say what you mean, and leave it hanging. Let the silence do the rest, because silence after a strong statement is terrifying. It dares people to respond, and most won't. They'll freeze, because in that silence, you're not just speaking, you're commanding. Understand this. The tone of your voice is your true message. The words are just decoration. But your tone, grounded, slow, measured, that's what tells the room exactly where you sit in the hierarchy. Want to rise? Lower your pitch, slow your pace, kill the nervous energy. Sound like a man who has nothing to prove, nothing to explain, and everything under control. Sound like a man who has already made up his mind and expects the world to catch up. You don't win conversations by being loud. You win them by speaking like your words carry weight, like they aren't up for debate. That's how rulers speak, how generals speak, how kings speak, especially when they're still in exile, quietly plotting their return. And when someone challenges you, don't defend, redirect, never argue, never explain, never justify. Just say, I disagree, or better, that's incorrect, and move on. Because when you refuse to debate, you signal something dangerous. Your reality isn't up for negotiation. And that scares people. Because real control isn't loud. It's quiet. It's still. It's the weight behind your words. The gravity of your certainty. The unspoken message that when you talk, others listen. Not because you demand it, but because it feels inevitable. You're not trying to be right. You're speaking like someone who can't be wrong. You're not trying to be heard. You're speaking like someone who knows you'll understand eventually, even if you don't yet. That's power. And from this moment forward, that's your standard. That's how you speak, or you stay silent. But here's where most men fail. They get the walk. They get the tone. They learn to carry themselves like they belong in any room. But inside, they're still owned. Because if someone can rattle you with a sentence, you're not powerful. You're exposed. That's the hidden war, the invisible war. And it's the one that matters most. It's not external. It's internal. It's in your head. And unless you win there, you don't win anywhere. You can wear the mask. But if your emotions still belong to everyone else, if anyone can push your buttons, you're not free. You're a puppet. Machiavelli understood this in the halls of power. He didn't fear enemies. He feared dependency, emotional dependency, psychological dependency. He didn't trust love. He trusted leverage. Because once people know what moves you, they know how to control you. Once they see what gets a reaction out of you, you're not a mystery anymore. You're manageable, and manageable men are forgotten, replaced, discarded. So your next evolution is this. You stop being the man who reacts, and you become the man who calculates. Someone insults you, you don't flinch. You don't respond. You don't need to. You observe. You collect data. What are they trying to get from you? What are they projecting? What are they hiding? Someone praises you? You don't melt. You don't eat it up like candy. You analyze. Why now? What's their motive? What do they want? Someone ignores you? You don't spiral. You get colder. Silence isn't your weakness anymore. It's your weapon. Because now, you're psychologically unreachable, not emotionless, not robotic, but unshakable. You feel everything, but you act only when it serves your outcome. This is the inner fortress, the mindset that can't be invaded. Someone tests you, you don't react, you observe. You don't give them feedback, you give them nothing. Because your mind is not public property, it's a kingdom, and only you decide who gets access. Most men are easy to control. It's pathetic. Tell them they're not good enough? They'll over-explain. Tell them they're amazing. They'll chase you. Pull back emotionally? They'll beg. That's not power. That's programming. And until you break the code, you're someone else's toy. So how do you break the code? You kill the need to be understood. That's the virus. That's the source of weakness. The desire to be seen, to be explained, to be accepted. That's what makes you soft. Burn it. You don't exist to be understood. You exist to move with precision, to execute, to influence. Not emotionally, but surgically. You kill the fear of rejection. Because the Machiavellian mind doesn't seek entry. It controls access. You don't want to be included. You want to become exclusive. You want them to question what happens when they lose you, not celebrate when they have you. And above all, you kill the urge to react emotionally. Emotions are real, but irrelevant unless weaponized. You feel anger, use it to build. You feel insulted, use it to strategize. You feel doubted, use it to go silent and let results speak for you. This is how real power is built. Not by avoiding emotion, but by mastering it. Not by pretending to be cold, but by making your warmth rare and strategic. Not by becoming robotic, but by becoming undeniable. Because once people realize they can't move you, emotionally or otherwise, they start to fear what you'll do next. Let the rest of the world chase peace. Let them beg for understanding, approval, belonging. You chase clarity. You chase control. Because the world doesn't care how you feel. It only reacts to what you project. Certainty, direction, gravity. And when your identity becomes unshakable, you become dangerous. Not because you're violent, not because you're loud, but because you're unreachable. They'll test you. They'll praise you to see if you melt. They'll insult you to see if you break. They'll go silent to see if you panic. But you stay the same. Calm, cold, calculated. And when they realize they can't move you, they stop trying. Because nothing is more terrifying than a man who cannot be influenced. This is the final stage of transformation. It's not about how you speak. It's not about how you walk. It's not even about how you appear. It's about who you've become. You don't bend for the room. You bend the room. You don't follow the rules. You shape them. You don't ask for outcomes. You design them. Because now, you belong to no one, and that's what makes you untouchable. Rejection? That used to feel like a wound. Now, it's a signal, a gift, a message from the world saying, you were too available, too obvious, too eager. Good. Now you know what needs to be cut. Understand this. Rejection is never personal, it's positional. People reject what they believe they can live without. So if they said no to you, that's not a loss. That's intel. Now you know how they value you and how you should value them. And from that knowledge, you build your next move, quietly, strategically. Step 1. Never show that you're affected. The moment you show pain, they win. And it's not even about them. It's about your legend. Because a Machiavellian mind doesn't panic when a door closes. It just makes the air colder. You weren't rejected. They were disqualified. Step 2. Withdraw your presence like a weapon. People don't appreciate what they have until it disappears. So when they reject you, vanish. No goodbye, no closure, just silence. And in that silence, while they feel the void, you build. Step 3. Reframe the entire narrative. Rejection only has power when it looks like you were chasing something, but you weren't. You were observing. You were collecting data. You gave them an opportunity to recognize power, and they failed. Their mistake revealed everything you needed to know. Now you vanish and upgrade. Simple. Step 4. Turn rejection into clarity, and clarity into control. Most people walk around confused, unsure of who respects them, who fears them, who uses them. But rejection removes the fog. It gives you a list. Now you know where your influence ends, and where it needs to grow sharper. So you refine your edge. You sharpen your image. You increase your value to the point where the people who once overlooked you now struggle to say your name without regret. And when they come back, and they will, you won't even need to reject them. You've already risen beyond their reach. That's control. Silent, permanent, elegant. Step 5. Weaponize the comeback. This isn't about revenge. That's emotional. That's small. This is about domination. Quiet domination. You reappear only when your presence causes discomfort. When your growth is so obvious, so undeniable, they can't ignore it. When you're operating on such a high level that your silence is louder than their success. And when that moment comes, you don't gloat. You don't throw it in their face. You offer a glance. Or better, nothing. Because you're no longer trying to be accepted. You set the standard now. Rejection isn't a defeat. It's a filter. It's a forge. It's fire. It tells you what's too soft, what needs to be stronger, who needs to be cut loose. So don't ever forget, you weren't rejected. You were redirected toward a version of yourself that doesn't flinch, that doesn't wait to be chosen, that chooses himself. You build in silence. You rise in absence. You return as a force. You didn't get here by luck. You got here because you killed doubt. Not with affirmations, but with action. You stopped waiting to feel ready. You moved. You risked. You learned the truth. Power doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the bold. You took rejection and made it fuel. You stopped chasing approval. You became scarce, strategic, silent, and they noticed. You stopped entering rooms hoping to be accepted. Now you own them without needing to speak a word. You stopped speaking to be heard. Now when you speak, people can't afford to disagree. And above everything else, you rewired your identity. You're not predictable anymore. You're not easily moved. You've become untouchable. They can't provoke you. They can't tempt you. They can't shake you. Because you belong to no one now, and that makes you unforgettable. That's what creates legends, not noise, not fame, but presence. Powerful silence, cold clarity, ruthless consistency. You don't need to announce your transformation. They'll feel it. In your walk, in your tone, in your absence. You've become the man who used to chase, now being chased. The man who used to ask, now deciding. The man who no longer waits for permission. Because he is the permission. So no, this wasn't about confidence. This was about dominance. Mental dominance, emotional dominance, psychological dominance. You're not here to fit in. You're here to move the pieces, to shift the atmosphere, to haunt the memory of anyone who thought they could overlook you, because legends don't beg, they don't explain, they exist, and the world reshapes around them. Final command: like this video if you're done chasing. Subscribe if you're ready to become the kind of man they can't control, can't predict, and will never forget. Because this isn't self-help, this is war, and you just became a weapon.